This program has been sponsored by Old Time Italian Cuisine. Located at 612 Boston Street in Lynn, Mass., Old Time offers a variety of authentic Italian dishes ranging from pasta to chicken and more, with delicious desserts and fine wine. Bring your family down to their dining area or enjoy a drink at their full-service bar. Old Time Italian Cuisine. Great, authentic Italian food. The City's Voice is brought to you by Salon 234. Salon 234 is dedicated to delivering the highest quality service. We pride ourselves on being a visionary full-service company specializing in the current hairstyle trends and skincare needs for all different types of skin. Our highly skilled staff are committed to meeting your needs with a spirit of caring and individual attention. Passion for excellence and dedication to the advancement of industry standards will continue to guide the evolution of our company. Come find yourself and unwind yourself.
Good evening, I'm Joe Spina, and welcome to the third of four special editions of the City's Voice. My co-host or co-commentator, the Honorable Mayor Dave Phillips. How are you?
Good. Hi, Joe.
So what we're going to do tonight is we have the Councilors at Large, but we've got some stiff competition. One is there's something happening up at Union Hospital where a number of them are up there. We have Catarina and Miguel here in studio. And the Red Sox will be on at late 8-something, and we're going to get to that one. And I guess the Bruins are playing tonight also. Look, here's what we're going to try to do. We want you to give us a call here at 781-596-9641 because you're their boss. You're the one that's going to be the one who's going to hire these folks to be your servant. So it's going to be no rules except for civility. And welcome, Catarina. Welcome, Miguel. How are you?
Good evening. Good. How are you?
So I know they're going to be trickling in and out as a consequence of this Union Hospital. So let me start right off and give you both, talk about it back and forth with us, your feelings on it, whichever one.
You mean on the Union?
Yeah.
On what's going on in the Union Hospital? Actually, it's a very a topic that we all care deeply, in the sense that it's so many people right now needing help. And what they want to do with the mental health institution in there is actually reject the regular people who also have an emergency. So what's going to happen now is that 87 beds are coming into Lynn. Right now we're going to be left with only 30 beds. And when we have an emergency, there'll be nobody else in there to take care of. We have to go all the way to Salem Hospital to take care of whatever.
Okay. But you're trained as a psychologist, correct?
Yes.
So you understand this problem?
I do understand the problem. What I think we should do is have several or different type of clinics that they can go to instead of just closing down the hospital and not, provide services for everybody. I mean, the way they had it before was much better.
Catarina, I want to ask you, because last week we had, you remember Mayor Billy Trahant had made a quote in the newspaper saying that he's sick and tired of Lynn being a dumping ground. Right. Do you think that Lynn has been and is a dumping ground for societal problems vis-a-vis the psychiatric ward?
It is. It doesn't mean, we're serving the whole North Shore right now. There are people here from Saugus, Malden, Peabody running Lynn streets, and it's becoming a problem. And I think we need to address that issue. I've run into a lot of people with substance abuse issues, and I understand the problems and how to deal with that. I've helped a few people over the course of 13 years go on to the way to move away from substance abuse. So I understand the process, but the most important critical thing is that not just for Lynn, but for the region, because Union Hospital is serving Linfield and Peabody and other cities that are accessing the hospital off of Route 1 easily. This is an easy, accessible hospital off a highway, and it's going to be detrimental not just to Lynn. I also started a Facebook page called Lynn Needs a Hospital. and it's grown in the past 2 days. It's probably up to 600.
Hold that up. I can see it from here. It says Lynn needs a hospital, meaning
Meaning we need a full-service acute
precisely.
hospital. Yes.
Right, as opposed to what's being proposed now.
As opposed to just specialized services.
Got that. I want you to think about, because I want to mention to the mayor, when you were serving, we had a Lynn Hospital and we also had the Union Hospital.
We had both, yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then we didn't have Lynn. Then Lynn was gone. And, you know, when a city has 90,000 people, can we justify, you know, the shrinking?
Yeah, I agree completely with what both of the candidates are saying. In fact, my niece, Debbie, works at the Salem Hospital with their mental health people, and they're going to all be transferring over to the Union Hospital from Salem. So it's kind of bringing all of those issues here, and there doesn't seem to be a balance there that you need. And for a city of 90,000 people, I mean, in my day, we had both hospitals.
Exactly.
And they were both busy and
Yeah, and profitable. And I want to bring you back in because I'm a little concerned. This does not mean that we're not compassionate as a people or a city. It's just that you can't overload a city with too many of those problems. Miguel?
For example, this will be the one and only clinic around the North Shore. Why can't we have a small clinic in Salem, Beverly, Peabody, you know, Saugus? Everybody's dumping to use.
You can use the word dumping because that's the word that the council from Ward 2 said.
And like you say, Sean, it's not that we don't feel for these people. They are patients, they need help, and I think that we can do it. But we're not ready to take all this group of people at once, you know, to provide the services that they need.
Yeah.
Why can't we do it also in Swampscott?
Katarina?
I believe in family, and I believe institutionalizing, creating, you know, big areas and setting people off away from their community. I don't think it helps them heal. I think it delays the healing process. I know a few people who've gone to treatment for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 2 years. They come back to their home, and it doesn't, going away to another city, to another place, would not help someone heal. Healing begins at home. So if we strengthen the family values, and I'm probably one of the few candidates that spoke about the substance abuse issues in Lynn from the beginning. So this is my little history project of substance abuse. It all began with codeine, morphine. It still is given surgery, clients today. And then they bottled heroin to help people come off of morphine and codeine. And then they made methadone to come off of heroin. These are all the same. They're opiate replacements. There's something new today called an opiate blocker. It's what ambulance drivers use, and what many in self-care treatment today, self-maintenance. So they're not going away for treatment. They're maintaining themselves at home in a sober environment, and they're using either Suboxone or Vivitrol, and that is actually costing less money because institutionalizing people for substance abuse issues and other issues, it's increasing the costs, taxpayers' costs. It costs 4 times more than doing a self-treatment program. And what they're not encouraging people is to be self-reliant. So, I encourage everyone to look. There's a lot of research out there. Vitamins that increase endorphins, vitamin B6, B3, C, vitamin C. These are some of the main ingredients in these opiate blockers. And I believe with a little bit of balance, we can teach. If in these programs, we can encourage them to teach people to be self-reliant with these, medicated, branded.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it's funny because self-reliance is not something that too many people are talking about today, are they?
Right.
This dependency seems to be the problem.
Right. Exactly. Dependency. We're depending, and we're depending on something big to save us, and the only thing that can save us is ourselves.
Can you both hold the thought, because I have to make a couple of announcements. We'll get right back to this. It's a great discussion. Miguel, you're in this field, so you know about it. That was an interesting analogy she made about, so whether you treat it by one, you're still hooked. Just going down to a different hook, right? I mean,
It's a replacement.
yeah. Listen, our number here is 781-596-9641, and we ask you to turn down your TV when you give us a call because, you know, there's a little competition there. Mr. Mayor, Comcast Channel 22, Verizon Channel 37, from tomorrow all the way through Sunday, they'll be playing.
Okay, and this is what we're looking at from October 24th to the 27th. The City Voice Councilor At-Large roundtable discussion, which is
We're doing now.
we're doing right
If we
now,
repeat again tonight at 10, and that's at what time?
2 p.m.
Okay.
And then 4 p.m. Lynn City Council meeting from October 22nd. And then 5:30 p.m. Lynn Area Chamber of Commerce mayoral debate. And then 7 p.m. the City Voice Councilor At-Large table discussion, which is what we'll be doing
Yeah,
here
tonight.
tonight. And then 9 p.m. the Lynn City Council meeting from October 22nd. And finally, 10:30 p.m. Lynn Area Chamber of Commerce mayoral debate.
Yeah, and I believe next week.
And this is the third, and of course, the last one will be the mayoral,
which will be
yeah.
a week from tonight. I noticed that Clay Walsh is out in the studio, so we'll bring him in. Miguel, let me get to you because I find this a fascinating discussion between the two of you. Pine in, whatever your thoughts are.
One thing I like to say is that Katarina left out the medical marijuana also.
Yes. Thank you.
And right now we're looking for places, and I believe that Lynn is going to be at least one of the cities that we're going to be opening at least 2 stores. There you go again. I mean, are we actually, what does
There you go
Lynn
again.
is,
I like that. Go ahead.
you know, trying to bring more drug issues into the city? I mean, why can't we just go to...
So you think it's a bad idea?
I do believe so.
Kevin,
yes.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think we have veterans coming from the war with PSTD. We have, again, these medications that are taken are aggravating citizens, and medical marijuana is actually helping calm people. And one of the issues is the residents in Lynn cannot get into these treatment programs because they have to wait in line because people from Peabody, Saugus, Malden, they're ahead of them. I think if there's an ordinance we can put forth to say help Lynn families first, and then that puts the pressure on other cities to help their own.
I like to see that if we do open a clinical marijuana dispensing in Lynn to be owned by a residential, by a resident of the Lynn area. But in order for you to open something like this, you need $30,000 for the license to apply for the permit, and then you need $75,000. So you're talking about $105,000 before you can even open up a store. So
well, let's talk about that. I think we have someone on the line. Caller? Hi, do we have a caller on the line?
Yes, my name is Leslie Quartermanch, and I have a question to both candidates. I'd like to know how each would vote if there was a proposal to sell off any parcels of undeveloped land adjacent to Lynn Woods that is owned by the city of Lynn.
Just of that, both of you?
I did.
I did read something on the newspaper that it was proposed for the city to see if we can make some money. I will probably be against it. And the reason why is because we need the woods, we need the park, and some people do appreciate taking a walk there, and actually the race is done through there, and it's been done through many years. I will vote no.
And I think anyone who knows me knows that I would vote no to sell the woods. It's part of my campaign. I've drawn protected space in lime green, unprotected space. I believe we should protect the green belt put a Preservation Protection Act ordinance together. And concerning the land off of Route 1, just to clarify things, this is data from Mass GIS. Anyone can go online and look at it. This is showing property protected in perpetuity, and it's labeled Lynn Woods. Now, the parcel here, I believe that is in discussion to be leased to access more area. It's protected in perpetuity, so we'd have to undo the designation.
You know what? I'm going to hold that thought. I'm going to come back. We're going to take a short break here, folks, and we'll be back, and candidate Walsh will be with us. Stay tuned.
The City's Voice is brought to you by Salon 234. Salon 234 is dedicated to delivering the highest quality service. We pride ourselves on being a visionary full-service company specializing in the current hairstyle trends and skincare needs for all different types of skin. Our highly skilled staff are committed to meeting your needs with a spirit of caring and individual attention. Passion for excellence and dedication to the advancement of industry standards will continue to guide the evolution of our company. Come find yourself and unwind yourself.
Are we ready? And we're back. We have another candidate, Mr. Mayor. But let me ask you this. You had many hats in your life, and one of them was you were actually a city planner, were you not? And I think you can talk to Katarina before the break. She was saying something that you wanted to.
Yeah, I just as a comment, because I'm not taking position here because I'm not a candidate. But many years ago, after I was in the city planning with the city, I was Commissioner of Public Works for several years. And in those days, we combined all of those functions under one roof. And a real concern we had was for the watershed that supplied our water supply. Now, water comes from the Ipswich River, comes from the Saugus River, but it also comes from the watershed. And that's why our forefathers bought a lot of this land that remains vacant just so that it protects those water supplies. And if any of you have looked at the cycle that go through from Birch Pond and ultimately to Breeds and then to the treatment plant, I'm not going to take a position. I saw the article on potentially selling 22 acres, was it, or something like that. But I think you need to look at that carefully to see whether that's going to impact environmentally the watershed area. A lot of the watershed that the city has lies beyond the city.
May I comment on that?
Sure.
That last question that was brought to one of our by one of our viewers at home. Good evening, everybody at home. I was just left Lynn Hospital, Union Hospital, stayed for opening statements up there at the community meeting, and just wanted to thank everybody here for having us on again tonight. My name's Robert Clay Walsh, running for Lynn Councilor At-Large, and the last question was how how do we feel about land being sold in Lynn Woods? And I'd like to say that I think Lynn has a lot bigger issues to deal with than to be thinking about selling land in Lynn Woods this time. Whether it's in Lynn Woods or land that the city owns, I think Lynn has a lot bigger issues to be thinking about and dealing with at this time. I'd also like to let everybody know.
Oh, wait, but why do you say that? So are you saying that what the mayor just talked about, watershed land, should be put on the back burner?
I just don't think we should be thinking about selling the land at this time.
Should we sell it or not sell it?
I don't know. I don't think that's something the city should be worried about right now. We have neighbors that are concerned about rats, people that want to see our waterfront developed. They're concerned about safety in the city, the schools.
What about rolling back the hours? I mean, I thought that was the pettiest of all. You know what I'm talking about?
Rolling back the hours comes back to jobs and tax revenue. And I think rolling back the hours hinders that. That's my opinion on that.
You guys can break in anytime you want.
Yeah, I'd like to break
discussion.
in. I think we should be proactive about protecting our watershed before, last-minute deals and sales come through, and then we're not left with enough time to investigate what natural resources we have available on the site. I've worked on certifying 3 vernal pools and documented protected species and protected wetlands in Spring Pond Woods, and we saved that area because that was Peabody's drinking water. And if we didn't do anything, it was 2 years worth of work. I told people, maybe after the elections I'm going to start opposing the land on Lynn Woods, and they're like, no, you need to do it now because it takes time.
Jump in yourselves anytime.
It does take time, and I like to add also is that if we continue to sell little by little our land, there would be a point that we would have nothing else to sell. One thing I like to say is Lynn is not for sale. I love the city, and I like for it to stay the way it is.
For the record, guys, I do sit on the Friends of Lynn Woods board. I've been very active the past 3 years with that group. I love the woods. I grew up with the woods in my backyard, and recently I was up there for Pirates Day, and I love seeing people up there using the woods. That's what it's for, and I'm all for keeping it. I really just don't. Selling any part of Lynn Woods at this time is just not a priority in my book, and I don't know how you guys feel about it. So,
well, we have to make it a priority. We can't wait until tomorrow.
We can't wait until tomorrow.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's ask the folks out there. 781-596-9641. That's our number. What about our watershed land? I had never thought of it. Should we spend some serious time contemplating it, Mayor? It is a big issue, isn't it?
Oh, sure it is, because the quality of the water that comes off those watersheds, it has to be treated, and that's why you have so many areas where they reduce salt, during plowing operations along the road, Walnut Street, along Birch Pond. And so watershed is very, very important to maintain. The water that goes into the treatment plant has to be at a certain level before it goes in. And
before you can treat it.
Yeah.
Am I wrong in thinking that Lynn has some of the best public water around?
Yes.
I've got friends that live in other communities, and they have to use filters on their home when they go to do the dishes or to pour a glass of water for themselves.
But no one's in disagreement with that.
Yeah.
I think what we're saying is that the reason why, I guess that's what the suggestion is because of the watershed.
Yeah.
So it is important to preserve it.
It wasn't too long ago, by 2 years ago, that water got infested, I believe, in Watertown, and from Saugus all the way to Waltham, nobody could drink the water. Lynn was the only place that had the clean water, and it was able to use it. I mean, because other cities are interconnected. Lynn is not. Lynn is here by itself. Our water is not shared with anything else in no other cities. So we have to look at that, and we have to protect that. If we don't do it today, we're going to end up moving out of Lynn later on because we made a mistake. Let's not do that.
Craig, before you came here, we mentioned, that the hospital was having its, where you were at, and I appreciate you coming down. Is there anything you'd like to report about what happened there?
The head surgeon or chief doctor, I don't know his exact title, was talking about how technology has advanced so much, how even in 10 years ago, they only had so much they could do when they dealt with a heart attack patient. And nowadays, he was saying that it's so technology driven, and they have to have a team of doctors and nurses come in to do the procedures to free up the artery, and it's saving lives. He said it reduced it down to, from say 13% death rate or 15% death rate down to a 3% death rate. People are living longer due to this new technical procedure. He is explaining that it's difficult for them to be in two places at once, and they're trying to focus on, they're using that as an example. That's just what I heard for opening statements. I didn't get to stay to hear the residents' concerns, but that's what I heard, and they're going to have a follow-up meeting on November 12th.
Well, here's my question to the whole panel. All of a sudden, Salem Hospital becomes the priority hospital and its partners. They have 38,000 people. Lynn has 90,000 people. If you were just to use your common sense, would you not put your greater facility in that city that has the greatest population?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely, I would. I think this is not about, I don't think this is about people. I think this is about greed. I don't believe they're considering the society with this decision, and to say that it's about technology is a joke, because if technology is so great and so improved, why can't we have it everywhere? Partners is almost a monopoly. They're making billions in profit around the country, so why can't they have that type of machine in every hospital? My father was in transit from Union to another hospital, and he had a heart attack in transit. I brought him to Union Hospital safely, and if the machinery was there, it would have been less stress. It would have been a less stressful impact on him.
I think it's absolutely unfair to Lynn residents. Mm-hmm. We do have a certain level of crime where there are stabbings, there are gunshots, or people being wounded that way. I think it's not fair to the residents of Lynn. I think, like you said, the 90,000 people. I mean, 90,000 people means that many more heart attacks, besides the violence issue. That many more heart attacks, colds, flus. It's a huge concern. And,
And we have a great senior citizen society here, probably a lot greater than any other community put together. We have so many senior citizen living centers that it would just almost be detrimental and stressful for them to even think that there's nothing nearby for them.
Bottom line, I think it's all about the Benjamins. We all thinking about the greed, as Katarina puts it, looking to see how much money we can actually make, and whoever makes this money will be gone, long gone, could care less about Lynn or Salem, as long as they get their money. And by the way, all these facilities are also being, money that they're receiving is from our taxpayers. It's federal funds that they're getting. We need to tell the people up there to open up their, to be vigilant that the money that these hospitals are getting is not their money that they're putting up like you open in a regular business. They're all getting all this grants from the government and doing research. Before long, we all going to be probably looking to go to Salem for medical.
Let me go back before you got here, Clay. We opened up with there's linkage between comments made by some of our elected officials about their concern about Lynn becoming a dumping ground, and this Union Hospital issue is resurrecting that mindset. There are a lot that seems to be a sentiment. How about with you?
I absolutely agree. I think it's concerning. I think it was Councilor Trahant that echoed those feelings, and I think it resonates with everybody.
What do we do about it? That's the trick. How do you say no to the state and the federal government? Or would you say no to the state and
as
federal
far
government?
As
issues. They're the ones that create these nonprofits. They're the ones who set these guidelines. And if they don't work for your city, why should you accept them?
Maybe if partners can't do it, maybe we can bring somebody else in.
What it is that the government's holding the city hostage at the same time. And that's the bottom line, because if they don't accept the money, then they take away other grants that will help probably develop a school or something like that.
But that's the heroin that she was talking about, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's another place. You know what bothers me even more? Our state delegation knew about this months ago, and why didn't the city of Lynn know? There's a councilor who works for a state elected official. Why didn't he inform the city?
I think Katarina's absolutely on point. A lot of times when I'm going door to door and talking to residents, they ask me about what's happening right now. And I can only say I'm new. I'm here to listen. I'm here to try and come to work for you. I think the ball was dropped here. Absolutely.
Well, you know, there are a lot of people who listen, go out there to listen to the people, and I don't know if they're really listening. You know, and it's like debates. What is the debates? Everybody goes up there, gives their little talking points.
Yeah.
You talked about big issues. Now, I wasn't trying to take you to task. What I'm saying to you is this: you're right. There are issues that supersede other issues. They're more critical. And when I read in the paper that mayoral candidates are arguing over what time a bar opens or closes, I find that to be a side issue. It's an issue, but it's a side issue.
I find that about talking about a computer. Are you kidding me? The last thing I want to read about in this morning's paper is about who took a computer when and where.
We're talking about
What
weeks.
does that have to do with growing the city? It kills me.
Filibuster.
Pine in on that, because that's another thing that we had here. Mr. Weeks you're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
You know what? I mean, this should be something they should be settling behind. I don't want to read it in my paper. I want to hear about what we're doing to move the city forward, or where we're falling behind and we need improvement.
I think the city of Lynn got a curveball because after the shutdown, the first thing that we woke up the next day was the Union Hospital. Nobody knew anything. Nobody was putting attention. Everybody was concentrating on why is the government shut down. I think the government is always closed anyway. It's never open.
Speaking about information, that's called transparency, right?
Exactly,
in government.
yes.
Now, I was led to believe, and I consider myself to have an IQ just above room temperature, so, you know, that's helpful. I was led to believe that the city was on the hook for 20% of the Thurgood Marshall Middle School. So I said to myself, well, 90 million, 20%, I did my fast math, that's about 18 million. Come to find out, wait a second. Oh, no. There's a caveat to this whole thing. First of all, the state's only going to pony up 53.5 max, which leaves 37 million short. Which is it?
The thing that bothers me about that through the whole year, we received, I believe, I read half the information. You know, the public deserves all the information available. If we're looking at the records, this is a memo from the state written March 27, 2013. It says renovation to the existing school with an addition, the actual cost of construction is a lot less than the Brooklyn Street site. And then in the paper, it was said, oh no, it's going to be completely more expensive to rebuild. And that school is registered on the historic registry. It's a neo-Gothic style. It's designed by the same architect that did most of the buildings in Lynn. And the other half-truth that we received, these designers did these 3D drawings and like wowed the crowd, and like no one really criticized it. It like floats like a giant, boat over the residential area, but they didn't draw in the train line. I decided to draw it in myself. I'm like, this will be the train going by this school where children have sensitive hearing and smell, and asthma is developed at a young age. The considerations here were not full. So what can we do now? I maybe put an ivory tunnel over this. I don't know, but it bothers me.
Clay?
I'm less concerned about the trains. I appreciate Katarina's thought into that, but I'm less concerned about the trains. I do disagree with the level of transparency here. I am absolutely still think the city of Lynn needs to move forward with the school. I think it's a part of us growing. Was there an issue with the transparency? Absolutely.
I mean, if people went out to vote on the 17th to move forward under the predicate that we were going to be hit for 18 million and it would not increase our tax base. Was that? Am I right or wrong?
Right.
That could only happen if it was $18 million, because what we'd do is, as we paid off 18 million, we're going to roll another 18 million out there. So, it wasn't like we were saving any money, but at least the tax rate would be stable. But it's not going to be 18. It's going to be twice that. Therefore, the tax rate must necessarily go up.
And half of the other truth to that was the revenue from Market Basket and Kettle Cuisine was going to help pay for Thurgood Marshall. Now there's a delay on that, and what else is going to happen? So we're going to cut the woods, right? Is that the new plan?
Now, here's my point. As elected officials, would you go before the public when you see stuff like this happening? Would you be vocal advocates of, hey, this is what it means, folks. We'd love to have all these schools, but hey, understand what it means.
I've been from the very beginning. I've been I've had these images on my Facebook page. I said, look, this is the information. This is the cost. It's and people didn't want to listen. They just said, we just want to move forward, and didn't consider, like, okay, let's take a breather and say how we're going to move forward. So I am about complete transparency, giving all the information out.
So let's forget about everything. Profiles and courage. That's the subject I'm going to. That is what I think we need in politics. That's the number one issue. You can talk all you want about everything else, but if you don't have the courage to serve the people justly and fairly, don't run.
I think it's important to disclose the information correctly. And I'd be happy to state to the viewers at home, I'd be happy to support the pledge, or make a pledge to disclose that information. That's pretty much simple.
Also, is that we do not get the full package of information. Something is always left behind for a later day. In here, the voters went up to the ballots and said, do you support the construction of a new Marshall School? The city of Lynn will put in 20% and we'll get the 80% somewhere else. Sean just mentioned, we're getting 57%. There will be a gap of the 37%. Where is it coming from? That's what we need to see. We need to sit with the engineerings and see exactly what is going on. I mean, is it at 100%? We just going to be liable for 20%, or are we going to come back later on and say, okay, I'm sorry, we forgot to include another 37% into the equation?
The reality is you got 3 newbies sitting here that want to be involved in politics, want to listen, want to try to do the right thing, and the incumbent should be answering these questions. When they get elected, like you said, you're hoping they're going to do the right thing. Did they do their homework? Are they paying attention? Are they watching the bottom line for the taxpayer? Well, you tell me.
Are they doing their homework? I mean, a lot of people, I hear complaints, oh, things are so corrupt and, but a lot of the times it's simply like there's a lot of work, there's a lot of research to be done, and I don't believe everyone's doing the research. For example, a couple weeks ago, I stood up before council to object to demolition of this Victorian house in the Highlands. It's been boarded up for years. I think it'd be a good fixer-upper for someone, for a first-time home buyer. I requested that the Lynn Historical Commission does a walkthrough before any demolition, and I was denied and ignored my request. It's part of the rules in the ordinance. I was just simply stating the rules.
Let me remind you viewers out there, our number here is 781-596-9641. We'd like you to participate in the discussion, and it's an open thing, you know? And we're talking about anything. And we're not disparaging anybody.
Right.
We're just saying, hey, maybe it's about time that we take a look at what the real issues are, and transparency being one, getting the truth out there so people make the right judgments.
Yes.
Aren't you guys applying for a job?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And who's your boss?
Yes.
The people.
The people.
Thank you.
The people.
Mayor, you remember those days?
I had, maybe moving on to a little bit of a different subject, back in 40 years ago when I was serving in the mayor's office, one of our highest priorities was the development of Lynn Harbor. And development of the harbor is a two-part thing. There's the building that goes on around the harbor, but then the harbor itself. And for those of us that go back to Hurricane Carol in 1954, and we saw Lynn just devastated by not having any kind of protection. And I think the city has taken an active role in bringing new business down to the waterfront, but the harbor itself really needs to have, whether it's dredging and islands or breakwater, and that's something that former Mayor Costin and I have been volunteering for a number of years to do. And It'd be nice to get your collective thoughts on it.
Yeah, in the 2011 Lynn Chamber of Commerce Councilor At-Large Breakfast Forum, I was the first candidate to bring forward the idea of bringing a breakwater to Lynn Harbor. And that idea wasn't a really unique idea because they have breakwaters in Winthrop. Just take a ride over to Winthrop and look off their beach and they have breakwaters. I mentioned at the debate that Marblehead Neck serves as a breakwater for Marblehead Harbor, which is why Marblehead Harbor is so active and active with boating, et cetera, and waterfront usage. I love the idea of a breakwater. I think the frustration for me came when we do have these storms and Seaport gets damaged. We open the Lynn item, and there it is, Seaport's damaged. We got the pictures of the docks all banged up, and so you read about it, it stinks. You know, the yacht club members are upset, the boaters are upset, the community's upset, and then every spring we open it, and there's the director of community development telling us we got another grant for $500,000 to fix Seaport. When does the cycle stop? When does the cycle stop? That's our taxpayer money, which could maybe be going somewhere else. I get frustrated.
Sometimes when we...
You understand that, what we have there?
The federal turning basin is, the federal government has developed the circumference of the basin in the inner harbor. I'm not sure that may impact some of what we're discussing, but I think many of us that have been involved with the city of Lynn over many, many years feel that the real economic development for the city lies in that ocean and not with just warehouses and that kind of thing. But in order to do that, whether it's a breakwater or building islands out there, I think the city is going to have to take a proactive
on the turning basin. So the history behind the turning basin is that's a lot of filled land and man-made land all in our waterfront. At one point, if you look at old maps of Lynn, which I'm sure Katarina has a map somewhere.
I have something to discuss.
There was no land there, okay? So what had happened was a long time ago, the federal government created this federal turning basin, which is a federally protected area. You can't, you know, you got to keep it open. That's why there's no moorings there at this time, because it is a federal turning basin. At this point in time, it's antiquated. The land has been built out. The federal turning basin's antiquated. This is something where we as a city councilors, the mayor, state delegation need to go to our federal delegation and say, hey, look, it's time to change over here. This is antiquated. We need to change the rules about the federal turning basin. That's my 5 cents on that.
We have a caller on. Jordan, how are you?
I'm good. Hey, quick question. Recently, this is for all the candidates, recently in the last mayoral debate, the question came up about 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. bar closings. I want the opinion of all you folks there, if it's possible, on what you guys think of the 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. bar closing. If it's good, or if it's bad, are we for it, or if we're not? Or is that trial a good thing? Thank you.
Tackle it, anybody.
Right now, one of the things that we're doing in the city of Lynn, we are negotiating with the police department, hoping to see if we can raise the hour to 2 o'clock closing. We spoke with Cappinger. He believes that in the North Shore Latino Business Association, he believes that one of the issues is actually the lack of police that they have. So we need to hire more police men and women to make sure that they police all the bars and people who are coming out at 2 o'clock. The major problem that we're having right now is not in Lynn. It's the surrounding cities closing at 2 o'clock, and those people are coming into Lynn already intoxicated, causing problems in Lynn. So that is what the tax money is going at the moment. Whether we close at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, it's the outsiders coming back in from those bars. Like you get out of work at 1 o'clock, let's say, for example, you go to Saugus, Route 1 is open until 2 o'clock. Revere is open until 2 o'clock. The casinos are coming. Everybody wants to get into it. And that also brings about $27 million extra in the city of Lynn if we were to raise the hour, 1 hour until 2 o'clock.
I believe if there was a serve responsible program where establishments had, you know, a taxi phone right outside the door, a taxi stall station, or some kind of tradition in just reducing curbing drunken driving and making sure their customers get home safely. I think we can build responsibility points, and the more responsible an establishment is, the longer they should be able to stay open. I think, kind of earn it.
Earn the right to be open until 2 o'clock.
It was open until 2 o'clock past December and also for Christmas. They gave each bar an hour extra. Each club had to apply for that permit. If you had too many either fines or anything like that, you were not allowed to open. I'm happy to say that there was only one club in the whole city of Lynn that couldn't open because of different type of legal issues.
I just want to say I support the 2 a.m. closing. I think what had happened a few years ago was due to a couple people making some poor decisions, I think the rest of the people paid for it. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. If we want Lynn to grow, 2 a.m.s, we did it for a long time. As Miguel said, it's a tax revenue generator. It puts people to work. At the end of the day, I think as an elected official, Councilor At-Large, Ward Councilor, Mayor, you always got to be mindful of how you generate in tax revenue. The last thing any municipal employee wants to hear is about layoffs. So I think one of our number one jobs is to make sure that we're not going to have any layoffs, that we're bringing money in to keep our services provided for the city. It's absolutely important to work with the police department to try to figure out how to move around our resources, our police resources during closing hours. And I think the mayor said something about a 3-day thing, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Maybe it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But I think that's something that the police should be willing to work with the city to make happen.
Could we go back to the waterfront?
Sure, let's go back to the waterfront.
Let me go down a little road here. The mayor was talking about development of the harbor and the Linway. Development is necessary for the revenue you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to hire more police, and you're not going to be able to pay for a Thurgood Marshall Middle School
Right.
or any of the above unless you have revenue. Development is the key to revenue. You have to expand it. So why does Lynn have so many non-profits?
Going back to the money, because every time we get a nonprofit, also we get grants from the state to help those nonprofits. And even though they don't pay taxes, they still, by right, they can occupy and come into Lynn. Do we need them?
Would you think that we might reach a saturation point?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say so.
I think what's happened is there's not enough private development being encouraged to come to Lynn. So I think what happens, I'm not in. I'm trying to get elected.
Can you hold your thought? Because we have a caller online. Bobby, how you doing?
Hi, I had a question. Would you pressure the mayor into using the rainy day fund? Supposedly there's $16 million around to use. What would you use that for?
I will use it. I will use it for DPW. Right now, we shorthanded at DPW. Okay. One thing that I did speak to the people from the DPW, and something that they're looking to do is the hydraulic license tractor drivers in the city of Lynn. If you a third-class hydraulic have a license for a third-class hydraulic driver, you want to be actually move up to first class. The way that happens is that if they open in a grave or something at the cemetery, they have to wait for the city official to come in and make them a first class for that moment. And as soon as that job is done, they go back to being a regular temporary license. So we want to expand that and make that actually a permanent license so they can operate. Is the cost higher? Maybe about, if they make $18, they're going to make probably $20 an hour now. That's the difference.
Rainy day fund, I believe, is at the discretion of the mayor. But if I had to have an opinion on where we should be spending some money, Miguel's correct that the DPW could use some funding. I think more so on the tools that they have to get the job done. There's a lot of issues with roads out there. Plowing is an issue. I am a plower, and I see it as a guy that's out there. I see the difficulties we have by not having the right tools. I'll leave it that way. But I wouldn't strictly just do the DPW. I sat in the Council on Aging meeting today, and I know that our senior center here in the city of Lynn could also use a little more money. Our city, as we said before, has a high percentage of seniors living in the community. And if you go to other communities, just like when I talk about and I get passionate about the waterfront and seeing what they're doing in Boston or Salem or Beverly, if you go to other communities like Linfield and Peabody, you'll see that they have some excellent senior centers. And I just think our senior center should maybe get a fair shake, and that's probably what I would consider if I was allowed to spend some of that rainy day money.
I believe there's a struggle with the budget. I think we should address that issue first to help the DPW budget. Maybe certain department heads are making over the amount they should be making, and that could be funding DPW. But going to the rainy day fund, we could be innovating a program, starting a first-time home buyer program, helping people buy, rent-to-buy program for young people to bring new families into Lynn. That's what I would do.
You had to deal with rainy day funds, did you not?
No, we didn't. We
didn't have that?
We didn't
But
have that.
Is the rainy day fund a savings account? I mean, it's like me putting money...
In the old days, 40 years ago, when I was Commissioner of Public Works, if we got too much snow, we had to go to the Emergency Finance Board in Boston to get a supplemental budget so that we could continue plowing it. But we didn't have a so-called rainy day fund as we have now.
You meant the free cash too.
Well, is a rainy day fund a savings account?
The honey jar, right?
In other words, is it necessary to spend it? The rainy day fund is not intended necessarily to spend it, is it?
No.
Isn't it there for an emergency?
An emergency.
It is there for an emergency,
Okay.
such as a storm.
So it's a
snowstorm.
prudent thing to do is to keep it and build on it, I would
Yes.
think. But I may be wrong.
I believe it helps with our
Yeah.
bond rating too.
Huh?
I believe it helps with our rating, our city rating and bond rating.
It does. So that if
He's correct there. There's a so-called overlay. When you set the tax rate each year, the
Right.
mayor has to go in and meet with Boston, and the amount that you put in your overlay, which covers emergencies, does have an impact on your
rating.
credit
So that
rating.
means you borrow at a better rate, and that's a terrific savings in itself.
And the rent-to-buy program is also another borrowing program, so it's an investment program where people are putting an investment back into the funds.
781-596-9641. We're here with Councilors at Large candidates, and maybe some more will be trickling in, but at this moment we have Miguel and Clay and Katarina, and just an open discussion. And let's talk, budget is very important, right? The overall budget in the city of Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, is about $250 million.
266.
256.
266.
So roughly $250 million.
Yeah.
How much of that is given to us from state and federal dollars?
Okay.
Do you know?
I don't know the exact number.
I don't have those numbers.
I'm on the outside on this one.
All right, let's go down this road.
Remember, you don't have incumbents sitting here,
Yeah.
Joe. You've got the guys that want to be in there. We want to run this stuff.
I'm just thinking. I'm not sure.
It goes by
There is
percentage.
It's interesting. One of the candidates just mentioned what the budget is $266 million. When I sat in the mayor's office, it was $57 million, but that was 40 years ago. There was a fairly sizable chunk of that budget that came down on what we call the cherry sheet.
Exactly.
And that came through as Chapter 70 for education. They have a formula that takes the value of the city's properties, and the poorer the city, the higher the aid package is.
On formula.
Yeah.
It's a formula.
It's all set by formula. And so of that 266 million, there's probably a fairly good percentage of that that's coming from state aid and, community development money from the federral level.
So
But
let's say
I don't know
50%. If 50% sound unreasonable?
that sounds a little high, but
40?
I wouldn't. I'd be just guessing.
Almost 50% of
It's
the
almost
budget-
50%?
Almost 50% goes to the school system.
Yeah, I know. Of that goes.
Of
That's.
that.
I want to get to that. So
Yes.
half of your budget is committed to education.
Exactly. Exactly, $126 million around there.
And that was about, when I was chairman of the school committee, that's roughly what it was then.
We have one of the biggest budget for the school system in the state of Massachusetts. Lynn is one of the most expensive ones.
And it's a shame the buildings are not being upkept. And how is the money being budgeted in that half? Again, we got to look at, how balancing that budget to have everything work. I think it's not being done very well.
Here's interesting, because I get around the city a lot, people, just like you go out there and meet people, I meet people, and I bumped into some folks who work as custodians, and they're being cut back. And I said, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. If you're going to spend all this money to build a new school, that school is going to look like nothing in no time unless you maintain it. So isn't that going in the opposite direction? I mean, should we not be expanding the custodial services?
Life cycle cost is part of the building cost. Most of the mindset today is to just think 3 years ahead instead of planning 100 years ahead. And life cycle cost includes maintenance. So I think that should be highly considered.
I mean, I remember having trouble with 3 kids keeping the house clean.
Yeah.
I mean, they're awfully messy. Now imagine a school with 1,200 kids in there. I mean, you can't have 2 custodians running that place, can you?
Well, it's not, the custodians are only one
aspect,
one
yeah.
aspect of it, but the candidates are correct that you have preventive maintenance and you have corrective maintenance. And in those areas where you focus on preventive maintenance, you can get a much longer lifespan. I mean, there are some school buildings that are 200 years old that have been
in good shape.
In good shape because they've had the preventive maintenance and upgrades to them over the years. So,
Well, I'd like you to explain to our audience out there, Mr. Mayor, the difference between the two, the distinction. We have 2 minutes to take a break, and you folks think about it, and let's get to it, because that's an interesting concept. You said corrective maintenance and?
preventive maintenance.
Okay.
So if you look at the total effort for any kind of a function, whether it's a school building or a public works function, the goal is to have the management systems in place, and we've set these up in cities around the country, and Ho Chi Minh City is one of our last
And
clients.
Vietnam,
In
yeah.
Vietnam, we set up a similar one. What you want to end up with is that the level of effort for preventive maintenance needs to exceed the level of effort for corrective. And what we find is that in too many areas, perhaps in Lynn, in other areas, they spend 90% of the time just fixing something after it breaks, and 10% of the time doing the preventive maintenance.
Well,
so you've got to, and the custodial people, they do a fine job, but this is beyond what they would be doing.
Well, let's think about that, and when we get back from this break, we'll let the panel talk about it. Stay tuned.
The City's Voice is brought to you by Salon 234. Salon 234 is dedicated to delivering the highest quality service. We pride ourselves on being a visionary full-service company specializing in the current hairstyle trends and skincare needs for all different types of skin. Our highly skilled staff are committed to meeting your needs with a spirit of caring and individual attention. Passion for excellence and dedication to the advancement of industry standards will continue to guide the evolution of our company. Come find yourself and unwind yourself.
My music, leadership, my parents,
practice what I preach,
to make my family proud, my self-perception, my job,
my game,
my dignity.
This is why we say no.
The power of the word no gives you the strength you need to persevere. We live above the influence.
The majority of teens in Lynn choose not to use marijuana or alcohol. be in charge of you.
This program has been sponsored by Old Time Italian Cuisine. Located at 612 Boston Street in Lynn, Mass., Old Time offers a variety of authentic Italian dishes ranging from pasta to chicken and more, with delicious desserts and fine wine. Bring your family down to their dining area or enjoy a drink at their full-service bar. Old Time Italian Cuisine. Great, authentic Italian food.
And we're back only because of the good graces of our cameraman who lets me know when I'm supposed to do whatever I'm supposed to do. Jane, how are you?
I'm pretty well, thank you. I hope you're the same. Hello? I can't hear you.
Question or a comment?
Oh, now I can hear you. I do. Now, the Pickering School, I think it's about 70 years old. That doesn't seem old to me if it's been maintained.
That's what they were talking about, interestingly. You folks, I'm... Ed?
Well, I mean, I'd like to know about, custodials. You're going to build a new Pickering School, and if it's not maintained, it's going to be in the same problem we have now.
Your TV, we're having a little feedback problem here. Jane, can you turn down your TV a little bit?
Oh, is that what the matter is?
How is it now, folks? Is that worked out well?
Yeah.
Our technical people give me signals here.
Is this better?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Go ahead.
If they haven't maintained, 70 years does not seem old to me for a school.
Good point.
I mean, evidently it just hasn't been maintained. And are we going to keep doing this?
I think what we're seeing here is we see the same thing with the DPW. If you go down and talk to the DPW, they'll explain to you that their staff used to be over 100 employees. Clearly what's happened is our preventative maintenance people in the school system has been drastically cut. And then I guess it becomes a question of, when we're out there and we're in forums, we always hear public safety, public safety, public safety. So the police and fire tend to take the priority for the funding, and it seems like this issue is put on the back burner. We talked about this before, about prioritizing.
Well, this is very important to me. It's to everybody in Lynn, to all the parents, the children, and all the money we're spending to build something is not going to be taken care of.
Father's making a great point, and it's exactly the mayor's and I point on life cycle costing and maintenance. Without having that in mind, we're not. It's like trying to maintain your own health. If you don't maintain your own health, you're not going to live long. And it's the same with these buildings. And do parents really want their children sitting in classrooms that have not been painted? It's really a shame. So I think that should be an emergency priority over any other school budget issue, school building maintenance.
I don't think that we have a preventing budget right now, even though we paid $126 million to keep up the school system. Preventing something is actually, it says it, right? Preventing before it gets ruined. For example, you go to the mechanic maybe every 3 months and change your oil on the car before the engine breaks. And that will actually save you some money. That's what we need to do in the school system. Who's in charge of actually supervising? Is it one department? I found out about 5 years ago that the school system in the city of Lynn were controlled, the heat was controlled by Texas. That's what they had the main switches for it, and I don't know if it's still like that, but some people didn't even know that.
Let me get to the color for 1 second. Jean, you still there? She's gone? Okay.
I forgot that thing was on. I forgot. Well, anyway, tell them I commend them anyway.
Anything else you'd like to say? Jean? Oh, she's gone. Okay, good.
You know, Jean's correct in her concerns. I think over time, you know, these buildings were built 70 years ago. We had a larger staff to take care of them. They're getting older now. The hope is that when we invest in the newer buildings, they will be outfitted with digitized systems. So for instance, as Miguel said, the control of the heat. Big waste of money at this time because we've moved so far forward in technology. What they're doing in newer schools like Beverly High School is each room is digitally controlled. They can control the air at any given time. So if the rooms aren't being used, these all save on the bottom line so that the resources can be used to prevent preventative maintenance elsewhere.
The problem with that whole system, and I'm glad that you know, the mayor is in the room, and we share a similar background in planning and architecture, because preventative planning includes passive design buildings where buildings do not require that much maintenance. So you're designing your daylighting, you're designing to reduce the cost of electricity, you're designing to reduce the amount of impact you're going to need on the mechanical system. So you have crosshairs, you have large openings, and in materials that absorb heat during the day. School buildings are not necessarily going to be needed to be heated at night. So if a building is designed right, and most of the old buildings were, and then you know some additions might have kind of changed the original concept, but if you design it right, it should last. A good building should last for 300 years. And there's private schools that have gorgeous historic old buildings, and they're maintained beautifully with less cost.
I don't think by a true Greek from antiquity, right? I mean, their buildings have been around for 3,000 years, and they're still working pretty good.
What I wanted to say is that they don't make materials that will last along these days, because as we see in the ceramic edges, I mean, material was, it will last forever. As we can see in Boston, we don't have to go all the way to Greece, all the way I'd love to.
I appreciate Katarina's point.
I mean, we do have quarries here, and if our intent is to not build buildings to last forever, then why are we using masonry? Why not just make them out of wood, and it'll be a quarter of the cost?
Well, what I want to know is we're building a new school, and I haven't heard any politician come forward and say we should throw some solar panels on the roof of the new Marshall. This was just done in the brand new Beverly High School. And I'm sorry I got to keep bringing up other towns and communities, but as a Lynn resident, I'm proud of my city. I want to see us do better. I want to see us improve. And I go to other communities and I look at what they're doing. And his Beverly High School outfitted with a whole solar array on the roof of their brand new high school. And at the very least, the kids are going to get an education on clean energy. Lynn's just not, you know, I feel like we're not doing things as well as we could be.
Yeah, but we got a football field on the roof.
We do have a football field, you're right. We have a football field.
Turf,
or a soccer field, whatever you want to call it. We have a playground on the roof, right?
Where's your picture? Pull out the picture. Pull out the picture.
We built and developed a school with the playground right on the second floor. How can they play in the
so
winter?
Many pictures.
I like to see
Yeah.
that.
You've got a point there, huh?
My rendering with the tunnel over the railroad.
But even our number here, folks, our number here, get that camera over here. Our number is 781-596-9641. We're waiting on others, but they're up at Union Hospital trying to score points with a narrow universe, as opposed to being on the Joe and Dave show, which you know, is broadly based. You know what I'm talking about? So you folks out there, you're the ones that make the decision as to who is going to be your employee this year at the Councilor At-Large. There is a picture.
The picture of the school, as Joe said, has
the design, yeah.
AstroTurf on the top of the school, which I don't object to at all. But you have plenty of other room to outfit with a solar array. And as I said, even if it's not...
Hold it up, because I think it looks like an aircraft carrier, to be honest with you.
It does look like an aircraft carrier.
Design is non-contextual to the neighborhood.
And it can only be used 50% of the time, because in the winter they're not going to be able to use it either.
But did anybody here see that design before you made the vote toward it? I didn't see that design. See, I must tell you, I voted for the whatever it was called, the petition. Reluctantly, because when I saw the design, I was not happy with it, And when I figured out what the location was, I was even less happy with it. So it was a reluctance that I voted for it because I see the need. But Mayor, you hit the point. If we preserve things, if we do the right systems, then we can keep what we have and put it down the road a piece and save a barrel of money accordingly.
Oh, absolutely. The one thing I wanted to mention, I mean, you've given some really good examples, but the old State House right in downtown Boston, I don't know how old that is. It's probably 200 or 300 years old.
A little older than us.
A little bit older than us. So, but I also agree with one of the candidates who said that some of the materials that we use now are not as, don't have as long a lifespan. But with a good preventive maintenance program, and I might point out, in all of the cities across the country where we have done work on this very subject, the maintenance budgets seem to get cut first. And that's not custodial. Custodial is a whole different animal. But it's so important, if you look at the total lifespan of a building, to focus on that preventive, some people say preventative, but that's the old English pronunciation, but preventive, I guess, is what most people use now. Why this happens, I've seen, is that when we've gone in to work with cities here and in overseas, international cities, that we find that technical change is relatively easy. Organizational change, changing the pyramid so that you spread the communication over a wider area, becomes a little more difficult. But the culture change, and that's the change you need so that every year you'll get the monies in your budget to do the maintenance, to extend the life of these buildings. The culture change cannot be mandated, but it has to be really earned. And this is what goes on in the people's heads that are actually doing the work. And when they understand that this is good for me and I buy into this, that's when things happen. So,
good point.
So it's not, things in Lynn are not that unusual. Maintenance gets cut. One of you made the point, the police and fire seem to get the priority over public works. I mean, I lived through that for many, many years in the city of Lynn, too.
Since we're talking about building materials and firemen at the same time, this is, a cheap product today. People try and save money and use vinyl or aluminum siding. But in the end, in a tragedy, this is a very bad situation for anyone in a fire. It's toxic for firemen, for neighbors, for the residents. We're shortchanging ourselves with some materials we're choosing in buildings, and I think we should try and discourage that as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, Comcast Channel 22, Verizon Channel 37. Mr. Mayor, we have special program alert. So from tomorrow until Sunday, right after you get home from church, the city's voice is going to be on from 2 p.m. every one of those days. And this will be a repeat, folks, of what we're doing here tonight. Lynn City Council meeting at 4 p.m. And that was when? You get better eyes tonight.
October 22nd.
Yeah, and then what happens?
Then we've got at 5:30 p.m. on each of those dates, the Lynn Area Chamber of Commerce mayoral debate. And then at 7 p.m. on those dates, the city's voice, Councilor At-Large roundtable discussion, which is what we're having here tonight. Mm-hmm. And 9 p.m., the Lynn City Council meeting, again from October 22nd. And finally, at 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. on each of those dates, the Lynn LACC, the Lynn Area Chamber of Commerce mayoral debate.
And remember that next Wednesday, we're going to have 2 hours with the mayor and the mayoral debate. How are you, Paul? Paul?
Good evening, gentlemen. Mr. Phillips, Mr. Spina, thank you for taking my call. You guys are a little disappointed tonight that the others couldn't make it, but we have 3 fine candidates here. I want to talk about the city council meeting last night. Mr. Walsh made a comment that, we should just throw that aside and maybe do things behind closed doors. Mr. Walsh, I voted for you in the primary, okay? And for you to come out and say that we should throw something where the integrity of the city council secretary was brought to her knees by two people, unnecessary, is a total, it's just a disgrace to the city of Lynn. And for you to think that this is not important, and I want to tell you, okay, the city council has every right to ask what's going on in this city. You don't go into somebody's office. If I walked in that office and took that computer, I'd be in jail, okay? Mr. Weeks should have answered the questions, okay? You should have been at the meeting, okay, to see what was going on. You weren't in attendance, so you shouldn't even comment on it, sir. Okay, I'm not just being just sarcastic with you. I'm just saying, I've lived in the city for 53 years. I know your whole family. I've supported the casino boat, and I've done everything for the Walsh family, okay, because they're great people. But I am really perturbed at how you come out and when after what are you saying, that there are shenanigans going on upstairs and we should put them all under the rug? The voters of the city of Lynn deserve to know what's going on in this city. I see the smile on your face. Okay, it's not making me happy because you know something? You might not think I'm a reputable voter, but I am. And I'm just going to say that you're wrong. That is an issue that needs to be dealt with. And if you're elected to the city council, you still may have to deal with it. Thank you.
I appreciate you calling in. And I apologize if
cut it down a little bit.
maybe I wasn't being clear about how I felt about the issue. There's just so many things going on in the city, and to see our council and mayor on the front page of the paper fighting, I think, to be honest, a lot of people across the city are frustrated and tired of seeing this. As far as I know about the issue, the mayor's the boss. She had every right to look at the computer. If you work for any business, I think the chief or the top dog in any business, whether it be government or the private sector, if the rules are written that they have the authority to do so, then they have the authority to do so. And who am I to challenge that? I just think there's a lot of other things going on. If the council wants to question it, that's fine. I didn't mean by any way that it should be going on behind closed doors. I just think it's taking a lot away from a lot of other wonderful things that are happening in the city, and it's sidetracking a lot of the focus. So I apologize if I wasn't clear about that, Paul.
We have a caller. Joanne on Computergate. Joanne?
Yeah, hi. I just wonder where things have fallen apart. The mayor is the executive of the city of Lynn. All the computers are owned by the city of Lynn. Of course, she has every right to search them, whether it be by a contractor or by somebody that was employed by the city of Lynn. I don't know. Ken Weeks was a contractor. He has a right. He was authorized by the city. I don't get where the controversy is.
Any comment?
I agree with I kind of feel under the gun here because I really don't want the previous caller, Paul, to think I have any bad intentions with the whole thing. It's just that my belief is with the most recent caller that if the mayor has the authority, and this is her show right now, and until we have a new mayor, that's the rules. And I
like to say that.
I wonder whether I'm not familiar at all with this particular incident, and there's probably viewers out there that aren't up to date on it as well. Whether one of you could just give us a little bit of background information on what happened, what computer, and what happened with it.
I like to add that when the constituents elect a city official, there are certain rules that you follow and certain oaths that you take. And one of those oaths is that you will not use for personal use the city materials or computers.
Sure.
I do work for the state, and I know that my conversations are recorded. My whatever I do on the computer gets recorded. And if I did cross the line and did something that I shouldn't be doing, then you get reprimanded. This case, there's still an investigation going on. We cannot give either party the right that whether she was right or he's right. We don't know that until it comes down to the bottom line.
So it hasn't been...
It hasn't been, no.
Okay. So I am sketchy on it. On the scale of 1 to 10, I mean, I think you were vilified because the caller, Paul, from his perspective, and it could be legitimate from the way he feels, thinks that it should be elevated, that you kind of pushed it off as insignificant. Was it insignificant, or does it have... We can't tell. That's what you're saying, Miguel.
Exactly.
Is that right, Catalina?
There are certain facts behind the issue, and then there's questions of ethics, and so I don't know the entire details, but I think the caller was just simply asking, one, public property, public information. The public has a right to know, and of all information, and I think Clay probably just miscommunicated his thought earlier. And with that said, there's also procedure, and I'm not sure what the right procedure would have been, but and I'm sure that it's under investigation. So I don't know all the details. I wasn't there last night because I was preparing a petition, and.
Well, let me ask our audience out there, our viewers, if you have a perspective on this. I guess it's the week's Computergate, because neither myself nor the mayor are overly familiar with it and the nuances. So, Miguel, you said it's still under investigation. The facts haven't come out. So, if you would bring us up to date, we'd appreciate it here at 781-596, 596-9641. Must be getting late, but yeah, I'd like to hear about it. In my own view, and this is strictly like I'm pulling one of yours. I'm not making any comment here, but in my Richter scale, this isn't vibrating too high with me. I'd be more concerned about watershed land, if you want to know the truth, and dredging a harbor, and revenue-producing things. So on that point. And since we haven't really elaborated on your vision of how we're going to generate this revenue, let's get to that. Miguel, let's start with you. Let's generate a little revenue for the city and development. What's your idea? What's your vision?
One of the things that we need to do first is reduce the violence in the city of Lynn to attract more businesses.
And you know what? We got a caller. Victoria, how are you?
Hi.
Yes, can you help us out here?
Well, I have a few opinions, just being an old lady here, and I live right off of Route 1A near the beach here. And number one, for me, I can get to Salem Hospital quicker than I can get to Union. Getting to Union, you have, about 25 traffic lights, and ambulances never take shortcuts. So I can get to Salem by going down Essex and then the Swampscott Road, and there I am. Another thing, regarding the business with the computer. From what I read in the paper, the whole thing was that the mayor thought that Terry was doing something for Timmy's campaign on the job. And then Timmy said that he had a worker by the name of Dolores DeFilippo doing it. And then they showed in the paper copies of the letter with the handwriting. And to me, it sounded like, why didn't the mayor just have a handwriting expert take a look at the handwriting at the bottom of the letter instead of acting like Elliot Ness running in there with, and grabbing the computer, It's like smashing the beer bottles or something, And I think that this time, with these three candidates, I am loving it. I'm going back and forth between Sherlock Holmes on PBS and this. I think they're very knowledgeable, very bright, and I'm going to vote for each one of them because I think they're just great. I mean, because otherwise I would never have a chance to find out, how intelligent they are and how much they are for the city. And I love this program. So that's the end of that for me.
By the way, I'll send you the check later, Victoria.
Okay, good luck with you guys.
Thanks a lot. Well, that's a pleasant call.
That was a pleasant call.
I'm sorry, Miguel. That was worth interrupting you. Get to where you were going with this development.
Thank you, Victoria, for those beautiful words. And we do want to work for the city. We wanted you to hire us to work for you and work for the city. Like I said before, in order to attract businesses in Lynn, we need to reduce the violence. How we do that? At least probably by implanting new programs into the city, working with the police department. I do know of this program right now that is going around. It's called Cop Sync 911. You can go on the internet. You can review it. There's a small recording in there. This program is already being used in Saugus, Revere, and a few other cities. It costs like $1,200 per to get the program, and there's like $129 for each police cruiser, and they use 5 cruisers. The way it works, just yesterday we had a shooting in Las Vegas, a 12-year-old killing a teacher. Today, another 14-year-old kill another teacher. I mean, we need to get into this type of programs that will help our youngsters. I mean, we always quick to reject them. And by reducing the violence, we can improve the way people will do business in the city of Lynn.
That's a good point.
And also give them an incentive. I mean, let's concentrate on the small businesses. You know, TIF programs are there. There's a lot of funds that we can use from the federal government as well as the state for them to open businesses.
Let me make a little observation here. That 14-year-old boy that allegedly murdered the school teacher in Danvers has been in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for less than a month. Came from Tennessee. So, you know, it's part of a problem. I don't know what we do about, you know, how do we track, how do we flag individuals who move in and, you know, Lynn has a lot of movement, would you say?
Absolutely.
Yes. All right.
Well, listen.
And how do we take that, which is both, it's neither negative nor positive, you know, it just is. How do we take that phenomenon and develop a plan that's constant, that gets the revenue flowing into our city, that makes sure that we don't have these types of individuals who come in and create problems in our community? How do we do that?
We have to create tougher laws. I mean, programs that makes it almost impossible for somebody to get a gun. I would not go and get a gun. That's why we have the police department to do that, for safety, for our safety.
You know, I'm not a gun guy. I don't own a gun. I'm not crazy about them, but I really, really think that violence, I don't think a gun was used in the murder that took place in Danvers. I may be wrong, but I don't believe it was a gun. I don't know whether that's the answer to reducing violence. But I'm interested in developing it. If you're talking about an image, people won't develop in a city if they have a negative image of a city. Exactly. You're right, if they think it's violent. But we have other problems. We have drugs. We have a psychiatric hospital being proposed, right? We have too many nonprofits, you know. We don't have a harbor that's dredged, right? And any great city that I know of throughout history has had a harbor that's dredged. Do you know that? Every one of them. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and the Saugus River that's dredged. Having a Saugus River that's dredged, you know, it improves our waterfront access and the future of waterfront development. People seem to think, I think it's just a general perception that the Saugus River is all Saugus, and it's actually half Lynn, and there's a lot of potential there. I was up in Wells at the estuaries up there and found a place where you could take a kayak and go around the estuaries in Wells.
I don't think they dredge estuaries, though. I think they preserve more of the natural elements of the area, and then also...
Well, the estuaries, my point was to be accessing and utilizing our waterfront a little more. So you have the estuary section, but the deeper parts of the river could be dredged where we have a fishing.
And further upstream, the Saugus River is a portion of our water supply.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about gems, because Lynn has many gems. Yeah. The setting may be not that great and sometimes undervalued. I always like the golf course. That's a gem. Lynn Woods, that's a gem.
Yeah.
You alluded to a great water system, you know, that our forefathers were wise enough to put a reservoir system together. That's the envy of anybody, right?
We have a great water supply, water treatment, water distribution. It's a great system, and we control it.
Let's talk about it, and we control it, okay? We have a harbor. We border the ocean, both recreationally and commercially. We have a double value in our harbor, right, in our waterfront. We have flat land that you can develop easily, right? All of these things, they're not being utilized.
I think there's a bad plan for the waterfront. I said it before. I said that the plan that was brought out by this was on the EDIC website. It's towers on the waterfront. I think it's a hack job.
Along that land.
This is along the waterfront. This is on the infill part. This is you could see the Linway here, and these are the towers. I've talked to several people who do not want this vision. It turns the back on the city of Lynn. It creates a heat sink in Ward 6. It ruins the views from Pine Hill. It's just not, I mean, Sasaki did this drawing.
Hold one second. We have to take a break. I'd like to have someone bring that over to us because you had a great interest in that.
Well, we developed a plan but not like that.
I'm going to have it brought to you right after we take this break, folks. We're live here with Joe and Dave. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Because I'd rather paint with my friends. I don't drink because I'd rather draw with my friends. I don't drink because I'd rather have my friends do my hair. I would rather talk to my friends on the phone. I don't drink because I'd rather go on my face with my friends. I don't drink because I'd rather go on a computer with my friends. I don't drink because I'd rather read a book. I don't drink because I'd rather read a magazine.
What are you doing in the halls? You're fat, you're ugly, don't be walking this way. Get your things.
This program has been sponsored by Old Time Italian Cuisine. Located at 612 Boston Street in Lynn, Mass., Old Time offers a variety of authentic Italian dishes ranging from pasta to chicken and more, with delicious desserts and fine wine. Bring your family down to their dining area or enjoy a drink at their full-service bar. Old Time Italian Cuisine. Great authentic Italian food.
And we're back with Jack. Jack, how are you?
Hi, good evening, everybody. I just want to follow up on the discussion we were just talking about with Katarina bringing up the plans on a waterfront. But what would you guys like to see the waterfront plan be? What would you like to see? How would we get it done? I'd just like to ask all the candidates that.
That's a great question. We'll ask them. How's that?
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the call.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Now, Jack is bringing up a very good question. What do you want? What does the citizens of Lynn want? I don't think, I know there was public hearings in the past, but there was one flaw in that study. They noted Chapter 91 tidelands, and they said, oh, well, Chapter 91 tidelands give the public access. We'll give the public access, and we'll trade it to develop private land. But no, the public has a right to all of the, to a say in all of the waterfront, and this is why. This light blue line is the historic tideland. It's where the waterfront once was. Chapter 91 tide jurisdictions give sovereign rights to the public for land that was once submerged by water or currently submerged. Therefore, any development in this area deserves a public hearing. If I'm hearing most of the constituents say, we don't like the tower design, I think that should be heard on the table again. I think the deals that we're hearing in the paper are confidential. That's not right. Everything should be public knowledge and heard in a public hearing. If this is right for the city of Lynn, this is just an example of what someone sent to me. They're like, I want my waterfront to be open to the air, low buildings with decks and a lovely harbor. That's a nice dream, and have venues. And I'm also on the Historic Commission and was saying that one of the other things, the Lynnway was created to link Revere Beach to Lynn Shore Drive, so we can bring back the parkway and infill pocket parks, kiosks, pavilions, mixed with the industry here, because we should be proud of our industry. We have Lynn Tech nearby, and it could be something like Boston South Harbor. We have, they have a children's museum and they have a design center. There's plenty of ideas to mix with this waterfront.
During the break, we had brought something over to the mayor who had an interest because he was talking about a plan that you had back, when, 75?
1975, yes. Yeah. In 1975, the Community Development Act was enacted and funded by President Ford. And one of the first things we did was to develop a plan for Lynn Harbor, some offices, living areas. But what this does, just from the layout of it, this is very concentrated.
Let me hold it up.
Quantity before quality.
Yeah. What we did was we were concerned because when you stand at the Lynn or the Volunteer Yacht Club or in the parking lot at the Porthole Pub, and if you look straight down to the South Shore, there's almost 14 miles of fetch, we call it in boating circles. So when you get a hurricane, that all just pushes right up and into Lynn. There is nothing to protect it, like other harbors, Boston, Quincy, Manchester, Gloucester. And so at the time, we said, let's dredge all of this material, these mudflats, and maybe make some protective islands for the public. And they, in turn, would protect whatever was developed here along the shore. This plan that I see does not have any protection. I don't see any breakwater.
You're absolutely correct. This has been floating around in private circles. People want to develop the harbor. They want to see an island out there. I don't know if anybody at home has heard this, but there's people that want to see this happen. I have no idea about whether they're having issues with the state of Massachusetts or the federal government. But the idea of having an island in Lynn Harbor, and I know this might be far-fetched for the people at home to even conceive right now, but to have an island out there would serve as two point, a place to develop and to utilize, perhaps as public space, and then secondary, it creates a protection for our harbor. And as I said in 2011, once we protect the harbor, the development, the business, the money comes. What's the money equal? More services for the city.
Let me accent that because I'm completely ignorant of all of this. So you're telling me, Mr. Mayor, we're talking about 75 and you're talking about the present, and that the key to this whole thing in development is preparing or prepping the harbor properly. Am I understanding this correctly? In other words, there's a linkage between developing the land
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
without the harbor being prepped properly, doesn't make sense.
There's no protection.
Yeah.
If you look at Boston, the reason Boston Harbor is, you know, it goes in and it's protected. It's deep water also. But the other harbors where they have been successful, up and down the coast, whether it's Portsmouth or Gloucester, they're protected from hurricanes, partially protected. And Lynn is not protected at all.
Hold it. I'm going to ask, I told you I was going to throw you a curve, and I am. Former Mayor Dave Phillips, former Mayor Al DiVigilio, former Mayor Costin, former Mayor Kane. Those are great resources. How would you guys like to put them together, put them to work for you in an advisory capacity to talk to you and educate the public about issues like this that they know about and they have history to bring? Do you think that that'd be a good idea?
I love it. That'd be an excellent idea. I think from the experience that they have, and they also experience what the city looks like and what the developments are, it should be something wise to bring back to the city to give us their input.
Irving Kane would certainly do it. Al DiVigilio would certainly welcome doing that. Tom Costin would be the same. I can't speak for
Is Warren still alive?
Chip Clancy.
Chip Clancy, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of my aides when he was in law school.
Well, hey, wait, you're admitting to your...
I would guess that he would be very much interested. So we could act as an advisory group, but...
There's two elements to this. One is making sure the land is safe. I work on I'm a consultant for a conservation development project in the Bahamas, and the island was actually being cut by the tide. So we proposed to build a coral wall, coral-like wall to protect the tide. So I'm used to. I downloaded this data from MassGIS, and in the pink is FEMA flood zone. Investors are not going to want to have these terrible layers of unprotection. We have high-rising tides, and actually, if you look at this, the tide is probably going to go back to where it was historically if we don't protect the land. So the other issue, besides protection, is when you add conservation level. So when you're protecting the estuary, you're adding green. So when you add conservation, that's adding value. Investors love to be developing near. And as I mentioned before, if we recreate the Linway as a parkway, you know, it'd still be a transportation route, but have it, beautify it, build the estuary. We're raising the conservation level. We're raising the revenue.
Let me ask everybody here. For years, we've heard about the power, the no-good power company that won't move the lines as being an obstacle. That's been a one. And also, the reality is there's a dump site there. Yeah. That has to be capped, doesn't it? It is capped. Isn't there a huge dump site?
It's right here.
Well, there's an ash fill that is still being used, but the dump has been
sealed.
The landfill
has
been sealed. And I think we all have to recognize that whatever development went there, I mean, you can go down 100 feet to refusal before you
hit something.
Yeah. Huh? So you're going to have you're talking about building on caissons, but that, I mean, when you're on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean, you can do some of those kinds of things, but with the right kind of, protection.
I got that. So they went hand in hand.
The power lines, right? What are you going to say? They said the development would come when we move the power lines, right?
Of course it would.
Is that where you're going? And so now the new story, if anybody's reading the paper or following the Lynn politics, is we will now develop when the casino comes. And you know what? I don't think Lynn can wait for a casino. There's plenty of other communities developing and moving forward without a casino. Am I wrong?
Why?
Why do we have to wait for a casino?
They just pulled out.
You know the other issue I discovered? I was looking at the property values for some of the properties on the waterfront. How in say 7 years the property value increased to $4 million. Say it went from 2 to 6.
would you build residential or mixed
No,
in that area?
I believe it should be an amenity for the city of Lynn. It should not be another community in itself.
Upscale?
Absolutely. Our
Yeah, you're on
waterfront
the
should be
Atlantic
upscale.
Ocean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my point is, if you were to build residential, even if it's cluster residential, you would be able to generate a lot of revenue, would you not?
We're going to add, increase the need of services in the city, so residential isn't always the best use. I think we should stick commercial, industrial, and hospitality and minimize the residential because we're going to add services to the city budget.
Everett just did a giant residential project, and they have a lot of big name restaurants on the lower levels. The idea is that if you have money or you have a good job and you say you work in Boston, you're going to come to Lynn because it's going to be more affordable. And even though to the average person that might be a lot of money, it's more affordable to them. We want them to come here. We want them to bring their tax dollars here. We want them to spend their money here. We have to give them a place. They can't just live there. No one's going to want to live there and not be able to go grab a bite to eat or go shop. They need to have amenities too.
I think that we can develop something like 50 Linshore Drive. It's a big building. We can always put the businesses on the bottom, use both commercial and at the same time residential on top.
If you look at Revere, I don't think it worked for them. They have those tall residential towers and it did not,
But what else do they have there? They have Bianchi's Pizza, which I love. But I mean, after a while, you need something more than Bianchi's Pizza.
I'm hungry right
I
now.
think residential is not the
We need to develop also a hotel. We're close to the airport, and we need to have a hotel that, I mean, Revere has developed at least 3 or 4 more hotels within the last 2
Look at the new
years.
seaport in Boston. The first thing to go up was a hotel.
Exactly.
First thing to go up is a hotel, then the residences, and then the businesses, and then more of everything else.
Well, I had some cultural shock the other day. My granddaughter wanted to show me her apartment in Boston. She's sharing with another girl, to the tune of $2,100 a month, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's a big piece of change. Now, I figured that this is going to be something great. And Somerville, but I said, geez, there's nothing about Somerville that excites me. So I follow her into Somerville, up this thing called Winter Hill, you know?
Winter Hill.
Yeah, Winter Hill, Somerville. It's on Broadway.
Is that where the Winter Hill gang was from?
Exactly, yeah. And so I see this bastardized multiple family house that all the characters completely removed from it, you know? Forget the slate that they had and the whole bit. And I go up a bunch of stairs, the place looked crummy. And I look at this apartment that they got $2,100 for, and I could not believe it. I wouldn't give you 50 cents for it if you put a gun to my head.
That's the problem in Lynn right now. I would rather see us improve the residential area around downtown, in between Pine Hill, in the back of downtown, in between Franklin and Washington, Western Ave, and City Hall, and around the Commons. I think we need to improve those residential areas instead of creating more. I think we're going to demagnetize the owner-occupied interest.
But don't we have to attract a higher base?
Absolutely. We need to develop in what I call the sweet spot, which is something that is walkable to our commuter rail station. Okay? You got to have something where someone can move in, they can take the train to work in the morning, come home. They're not driving a car, it's walkable. They can walk to our gem, Linshore Drive, and the beach. Okay? And then if our boardwalk gets finished, they can walk to that too and walk along, hopefully, our public access space along our waterfront.
So you guys are really talking the same thing in different nuances.
We're trailing on the same idea because this isn't a great image. This is the gateway to downtown. Terrible idea to put a different type of image. And here we have the center of transportation, we have the MBTA commuter rail, we have the bus stations, we have the access from the highway. And what does the city of Lynn do? We put up more walls. Instead of creating it pedestrian-friendly small shops to magnetize businesses, we put up, I hate to say it, I'm not against this at all, but we put up a hospice. And it didn't help the growth of downtown. I think that should have been maybe in a different location, but at the center of the city, we should have a lively image. That we have commerce, exchange, growth, intelligence. And here are some of my ideas. If you go to Paris, Spain, Athens, Greece, what they do, they don't use big boxes, anchor stores to attract commercial areas. They use small vendors because people are searching for the cheap and little. I mean, go to the flea market in Revere and the Linway, those are crowded. People are looking for little souvenirs. And this is the Monastiraki in Athens, very nicely displayed, a pedestrian-friendly path, you know, shelter from the rain if you want to hide and seek shelter, but they put their heart on display. And I think we can diffuse the commerce into higher areas if we start off with the small guys.
One thing that Lynn has also that is very productive is that Boston is getting overcrowded. So if we build things like a small, I'm for the building of the waterfront. I don't want to see any high rises over there. I like to see something around the 5, 6 high, you know, floors, and probably commercial on the bottom.
I was gonna say, well, do we have time? Do we still have some time? Because I actually disagree. I'm more in favor. I respect Miguel's opinion, and I have heard that opinion from. There's a lot of people that agree with Miguel. I'm of the opposite opinion. I think if Lynn's a gateway, we need to stand out. We need to do something that makes us look spectacular and have something to be proud of and instill a sense of pride. And I don't know, I get a sense of pride out of a 20-story building. Recently, let's bring out Katarina's map of the Lynn Harbor again, the green one there, the dark green one. So back to the sweet spot. I mean, we go by it every time we get to the end of Market Street, but you drive by down the Linway, we got the Beacon and Belkin lands here that are just sitting there vacant. And that right there is within walkable distance to our train. You know, it's actually not far from the porthole. There's hopefully the boardwalk. The boardwalk's not far there.
Clay, excuse me. We have what you say we should have pride in. I remember when I was young and we used to come into downtown Lynn from the Linway, we used to pass the tall buildings in downtown. I'm like, I felt so proud because there weren't that many other cities in the North Shore, and I'm like, if we build another section of that, we're taking away from the downtown area that's so special.
I was proud. My grandmother took me to Union Street, Conley's Candies, the 5 and dime stores. We loved it. I experienced that. That's part of that's part of my history, my experience, and my past, and proud to talk about it. I just think that we need to move forward. And you know what had been given to me, what had been brought into my attention was a friend of a developer had brought these plans to me, and it's an image of a building that would sit at the Beacon Chevrolet land and offer mixed use towards the back, and on top of this area of the building that goes along the Linway, you'd have 2 towers. These 2 towers actually are in the shape of a sail to reflect our waterfront and our boating areas. When I first...
Let me just stop for one second, because the mayor was patiently... And I knew
just wanted, we're all on the same subject, but I wanted to, one of the things that Tom Costin and I did some investigation on a few years back, we all know, most of us know that the Panama Canal is now putting in a 3rd canal, which is going to be much wider than the 2 existing. And that's going to be completed. When I went through the canal about a year ago, it was well under construction. That's going to change the logistics of moving cargo from the Pacific, China, those areas, which normally now comes to the West Coast, then gets put on trucks and gets trucked across the country. And what they're saying is that the Panama Canal is now, was wider, can use different kinds of ships and higher capacity, will be able to bring more of that cargo through the canal and up the coast. And there are communities with harbors on the East Coast that are right now preparing for that. And one of you just mentioned that, you know, Boston is getting very overloaded. Lynn, when it was dredged, is not going to have, you're not going to be able to bring the Queen Mary in there, but you certainly could bring in more shallow draft stuff, and you could have a whole industry.
What we're talking about here goes back to, does the city of Lynn need a city planner? Am I wrong? I mean, you have a lot of, you're talking about the right thing. We're bouncing ideas off of each other.
That was my job, but that was 50 years ago.
The vision is good, but in order to execute vision, we need a professional that understands logistics or says, you know, it's going to begin. If you want that vision, we need to start here, and then we're going to do this and this until it's complete.
Let me ask you this. Steve Jobs was a visionary.
Yep.
I have one right here. He was not a very good engineer, I hate to tell you.
Right.
But he saw, and he got the people that could put it together. Give me the visionary with the passion, give me Steve Jobs, and you'll see this city fly. Now, what he's talking about, and what all of you are talking about, is happening, or can happen. I'll date myself. Where the Linway was, I used to swim next to big ships that came in with coal and leather. Yes. So big ships did come in there when I was a kid.
When it was dredged.
Yeah. When it was dredged. So you can make that harbor useful. We have a caller. Bernie, how you doing, Bernie?
Hi. Hello?
You.
Hi, hold on. Let me turn on this TV here so maybe you can probably hear me. Hold on so that you get it. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Can I ask my question?
Go. You're absolutely. We're waiting on you.
Okay. Basically, my question is that, like, you know, they're trying to spoof. They're trying to, you know, improve the image of Lynn and the city of Lynn. And one of the things I think that is really like an eyesore for Lynn is My Brother's Table. You got My Brother's Table sitting there where the old post office used to be, and you know, granted that, you know, you got people that are down in their luck and they need help. You know, you got people that where Lynn, we help all the surrounding towns, all the surrounding cities, and then we get people that create their own drug problem, and then we get people like I would say I don't want to say misfit to put label. We get them into Lynn, and because other surrounding towns don't want those type of people there. They don't want to have a drug rehab place not in their town, but we accept it. But I think one of the good places that we need to do, we need to think about removing My Brother's Table and moving it. And I think what the good place you can possibly move it is right next to Building 19 on the Linway. That way you can sort of build up that area, because if you got condos that you want to build downtown Lynn, nobody wants to spend, $200,000 or $300,000 for a condo and then come outside and you got people begging for money for them. You know what I mean?
Good call, Bernie. Now, wait a minute. I want to tell you folks, update, Red Sox 3, St. Louis 0.
Thank you.
You got that first on the Joe and Dave show. Now, we have about a minute, so let's do it quickly.
I like to say that, Bernie, that the reason the Brothers Tables cannot be moved is because when that building was deeded to the city and when it was given to the city, it was with the purpose to serve the homeless. So we can't change it, we can't move it. And we have a lease in there until 2020. So we can move that building actually, and you're not the first one who's actually requested this type of proposal. It has been proposed before.
Bernie's correct. Yeah, the call is correct. People know about it. Ask any police officer that works in that part of town. Okay. They get it. It's holding that development back.
Is it the My Brother's Table or more the shelter?
Good point, Kevin.
One of the problems with the shelter is that they don't give the residents a place to hang outside, and they're hanging out in front of the sidewalk.
Guess what? I love you all, but we've got to go. That's our show, folks.
Okay. Good night.